This will be your 30-second warning.
I missed the first 31.
UPS.
All right, welcome back, everyone. It's 1:10. We're going to move on to the next agenda item, Habitat, and I'll turn the gavel, the virtual gavel, over to our Vice Chair, Brad Pettinger.
Well, thank you, Chair Gorelnik, and welcome everyone this afternoon. And I look to Jennifer to get us started off on D1. Jennifer?
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Council. The Habitat Committee met on Tuesday of this week to discuss salmon rebuilding plans, the NIMP's biological opinion on the Columbia River hydropower system, and another on aquatic animal control, workload planning, and some other issues. And as the Council directed in September, the Habitat Committee developed and the Council has sent a quick response letter to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regarding the Delta conveyance, and that's agenda item D1, attachment 1. The Habitat Committee also developed a letter to the Army Corps of Engineers on its nationwide permits on finfish, seaweed, and multi-species aquaculture, which, as the Council directed in September, is being sent today, probably as a quick response letter. So you can disregard agenda item D1, supplemental attachment 2. That is that quick response letter. It's not quite ready yet, and it's being sent out probably later today. So we do not have any comments from advisory bodies. It does look like we have one public comment, and we have Lance Hebden here, the chair of the Habitat Committee, to give the Habitat report.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Lance? Lance, are you there?
Not seeing him.
There he is. He's unmuted now. Lance, we're not hearing you. I'm not sure if he has a technical issue there.
Lance, you're unmuted on our end, so you're probably muted at your own phone or computer. Well, why don't we have Jennifer read the report in? We'll try and get Lance fixed up here so he can respond to questions if there are any.
Sounds good, Chuck. Thank you.
Okay.
Jennifer?
Okay, sure. Reading from agenda item D1A, supplemental HC report 1. Offshore wind energy. The Habitat Committee members Glenn Spain and Steve Scheiblower attended a recent webinar on wind energy hosted by RODA, the Responsible Offshore Development Alliance. The webinar focused on East Coast shallow water issues. A scientific synthesis document summarizing the state of the science on potential wind ocean ecosystem impacts will be released as a follow-up from this meeting. The Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Associations has asked RODA to do a similar West Coast-focused webinar in the near future. In September, the Council was asked to consider creating an ad hoc committee to advise the Council on offshore wind, aquaculture, and similar proposals. The HC supports the proposal and recommends that any such committee consider the habitat implications of these proposals as well as their impacts on the fishing industry. Aquaculture opportunity areas. NOAA is soliciting comments on aquaculture opportunity areas, or AOAs, as part of the May 7th Executive Order on Promoting American Seafood Competitiveness and Economic Growth. The EO directs the Secretary of Commerce to establish 10 AOAs nationwide by 2025. The first 2 proposed AOAs are in the Southern California Bight and the Gulf of Mexico. NOAA plans to identify 3 to 5 sub-areas within each AOA for future aquaculture siting. After the first 2 AOAs are identified in the first year, the EO directs 2 additional AOAs be identified in each of the following 4 years until there are a total of 10 AOAs. The HC discussed the importance of developing a comment letter that would evaluate the proposed AOA in Southern California and provide information about areas along the West Coast that should be avoided for proposed AOAs. Considerations include valuable fishing grounds, habitat areas of particular concern, EFH conservation areas, and areas prone to hypoxia and harmful algal blooms. The Council comments to the Corps on its proposed nationwide permits for mariculture are consistent with the input solicited for the AOA. The HC recommends the Council provide a comment letter on NOAA's public notice through the quick response process. The public comment deadline is December 22nd. See notice in the Federal Register, and there's a link there. Salmon rebuilding plans. The HC has been asked by the Council to examine habitat issues that contributed to the overfishing status for Sacramento Fall Chinook and Klamath River Fall Chinook. The intent is to address whether specific habitat-related issues might be driving poor returns in years assessed in the rebuilding plan, examine cumulative effects, address whether poor habitat conditions might persist in more recent years, and provide direction for Council engagement. In response, the HC has developed a list of life stage-specific habitat indicators for Sacramento River Fall Chinook, along with predictions regarding the relationship between the indicator and life stage survival. After initial review, the list comprises 28 indicators addressing 6 life stages: spawners contributing to cohort, egg fry survival, freshwater delta rearing, hatchery releases, marine survival, and adult return migrations. Indicators for the Sacramento are in draft form, but are reasonably complete with data available from the 1980s to the present. Indicators are included on attachment 1 to this report. The draft stoplight chart is in attachment 2. Those are at the end of this report. The next steps for the HC include finalizing indicators for Sacramento River Fall Chinook and aggregating indicator data for Klamath River Fall Chinook. The working group will reach out to interested parties to discuss and review the indicators and prepare a completion report. The analysis could be included in the draft ecosystem indicators report to be presented to the Council in March. Beaver ESA EFH consultations. Chuck Wheeler and Jody Walters of NIMS briefed the HC on recent NIMS EFH and Endangered Species Act consultations with the Department of Agriculture's Wildlife Services on the control of semi-aquatic mammals in Washington and Oregon. The consultations were the result of a lawsuit and include beaver and other aquatic mammals. The consultation recognizes the considerable benefit of maintaining beavers to improve salmonid habitat. NIMS stated that significant progress was made through the consultation to improve understanding of the importance of beavers in maintaining salmon habitat, document the scope of historic lethal beaver removals, and understand how to better document and minimize lethal removals. Lethal removal of beaver under the new consultation programs in Washington state is declining. Beaver removals in Oregon are currently paused pending a NEPA analysis. The Habitat Committee appreciates and encourages these efforts, given the importance of beavers in enhancing salmonid habitat. We'd also like to point to a new brochure with the link there, promoting non-lethal beaver management techniques for landowners and resource managers. Court invalidates FDA approval of Aqua Bounty GMO salmon. A court recently ruled that the FDA's approval of Aqua Bounty's GMO salmon for use in aquaculture was invalid. The Aqua Bounty application for use of a GMO organism in aquaculture was the first of its kind. The FDA's approval of the application was challenged in court by the Institute for Fisheries Resources. The court ruled that the approval was invalid because the FDA did not meaningfully analyze what might happen to normal salmon in the event the engineered fish did survive and establish themselves in the wild. In short, the FDA must now consider both the short-term and long-term environmental impacts of the potential release of GMO organisms into the wild under both NEPA and the Endangered Species Act. The court remanded the issues back to the FDA, ordering it to redo its impacts analysis accordingly. However, the court has not canceled the current FDA permit, so GMO salmon eggs may still be marketed with restrictions to prevent escapes while the FDA redoes its impacts analysis. The ruling can be found online at the link provided. Columbia River Biological Opinion. The biological opinion for the Columbia River Systems Review was signed on July 24th, 2020, and the record of decision was adopted in September 2020. The biological opinion is currently in litigation in a continuation of the case that has been proceeding for more than a decade. The case is expected to be heard in mid-2021. The present case is titled National Wildlife Federation et al. Versus NIMS et al., U.S. District Court of Oregon, Northern District, case number 1640 SI. Recommended council actions. There's only one right now. The HC recommends the council provide comments in response to NOAA's public notice on aquaculture opportunity areas. The public comment deadline is December 22nd, so this would need to be done through the quick response process. And then the next 2 pages, you can see those attachments.
Okay, well, thank you, Jennifer. Is Lance available to answer questions?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I showed up a little bit late. I had another meeting I was attending to.
No problem, Lance. Please, questions for Lance. Okay, I guess I see you're getting off easy today. So thank you, Lance.
Mr. Chairman, this is Chuck.
Yes.
I just wanted to compliment the Habitat Committee on the index Appendix 1 and 2, the indices for Sacramento Falls Chinook. I think that was a good bit of work. I'm glad to see making some significant progress there. Looking forward to seeing the Klamath, but thank you all for pursuing that, presenting that.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm sorry. We have one public comment card, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, I believe, or Mr. Vice Chair, Chris Kern had his hand up. I quickly withdrew it. But...
I'm sorry.
I will wait till after public. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, very good. And I do not have the name of that individual in front of me, but we do have one person signed up.
Oops, I'm sorry. That was my bad.
It's early.
It's a new system. Let's see. So that would be Carmen Zamora.
Okay. So Carmen Zamora? Do we have Carmen? Is she up?
I don't believe she is.
Okay. Okay, with that, I don't know how long that, okay. Well, seeing no public comment unless she would show up here sometime soon, we would go to council action, which is to consider Habitat Committee report and recommendations. Chris, I believe you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Vice Chair. I just wanted to kind of second what Chuck had mentioned earlier. This draft stoplight is excellent. I'll make myself a copy with bigger font so that I can actually dig a little more, but it's great to see. I note in there that the committee is recommending they assemble a report that would include the other version as well. And so looking forward to seeing that. one of my questions was going to be, how do we keep track of this and make sure that we, remember to bring it back forward? And that seems to be the way to do that. So really appreciate the work on that. And a brief note in case anybody's interested, the beaver issue, over the years, I have slowly started to grasp how complicated that is. Our commission is actually maybe still today involved in a discussion about a petition regarding beaver management that really reflects some of that complexity. So just wanted to make a note there. We're very active as an agency and sort of looking at those issues, particularly at the moment. Just wanted to make a couple comments. I appreciate the report. I think it's excellent. So as usual, so thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Further comments, Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This is in regards to the AOA, the aquaculture opportunity areas. And I'd like to bring to the council and the public's attention that through the good work and offices of our council member, Bob Dooley, Mike Conroy and I were called in to have a Zoom meeting with the folks in NOAA that are doing this work, the folks in the Ocean Service. And it was very extensive and in some ways quite reassuring in the sense that they have been seeking data, a huge variety of data. And I might note a variety of data that really digs down into what the fisheries are like historically and presently. And I'm not sure if you have the possibility of digging into their AOA website, but I want the council to be cognizant of the fact that many of the things that have been suggested on the Habitat Committee and in council are in fact being acted upon by this group. And I think that is, I'm not sure if that's a response from our council interest, but I want to show that that our interest has produced some good results. And I want to ask that those folks that write up the council letter to the AAA acknowledge the work that has been done and show or say that we encourage this and are standing by to assist them in any way and really appreciate being part of the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Marcy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you, Lance and the HC for your reports. Just like to make a couple of comments on a few of the items contained in the report. With regard to the recommendation to compile a letter regarding the AOAs that would be on the quick response process in order to meet the comment deadline of December 22nd. I would support this recommendation after quite a lot of discussion this morning in delegation. I'm confident that the HC has a pretty good plan with regard to developing its comments, and I think their statement reflects this, that the letter would evaluate the proposed AOA in Southern California, as well as provide input about other areas around the West Coast that should be avoided for future AOAs. I'm comfortable with that. I guess I would add that looking forward, I think going to be increasingly mindful about how many quick response letters we agree to take on and the clarity that's needed in our guidance back to the HC with regard to production of those letters. With regard to the letter that we've finalized and sent regarding the Army Corps nationwide permits, I I felt like we could have done maybe a better job on that letter with a little more time and a little more editorial oversight. So I think that the solution to that is make sure we really think long and hard about the number of quick response letters we're putting on the plate and making sure that our guidance to prepare those letters is clear. With regard to the salmon rebuilding plan item, I want to echo the remarks both by Chuck and by Chris as to the great work that the HC has started on and the work that is coming soon on Klamath. I appreciate too that the HC will be having some kind of offline dialogue with experts in other parts of CDFW with regard to where we go next. Potentially, it might be worthwhile to look into things in sort of a more granular level. Instead of looking at the entire stock complex, it may be more appropriate to look at specific basins because the basins differ quite extensively in their productivity and their, status and trends. So, for example, the mainstream Sacramento contributes highly to annual production, but has been in decline for a long time relative to some of the other basins that Sac Fall occupy. Anyway, we'll be doing some homework internally between the Habitat Committee rep and our salmon staff. And we really look forward to this work and the product that it is expected to produce. Salmon staff are very excited about this and eager to engage. So that means I'm really excited about it too. I guess with regard to the recommendation that it be incorporated into the annual ecosystem indicators report, I don't have a solid feeling on that idea. I think, that report always, it's a balancing act and content, there's a lot of juggling for space in that report. So, if it is the will of the authors that it be included there, then great. But I'm pretty happy to hear that the work is going on and we will see it and it will be getting some attention in the salmon arena. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy, for those comments. Bob Dooley. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just wanted to follow up on Louis' comments about the AOAs. As most will recall, it's been almost a couple of years now, I guess. I was down in North Carolina and visited with James Morris, and I gave a report to the council on that about their Aqua Mapper and their work on the tool to work on siting. And we've had continuing dialogue back and forth. He's been really great to work with, and his colleague Diane Wyndham, who's the West Coast representative for this, has been she's the regional coordinator, has been working with us too. So Louis and Mike and I and others have met with them and seen what they're doing and been working with them. I received just a couple days ago an outreach from James, and he indicated they have some preliminary modeling results and wants to meet. So I've arranged a meeting after the council meeting with him, and I think it would be really good for the Habitat Committee and the council, for that matter, to link up with James and Diane and get some presentations to the council. I've said it before, but also just to have that relationship and that resource to be able to be on top of this before we just get results that are public and everything, and out that way. So I look at that as a real good resource, and I would hope that the Habitat Committee and others could reach out to him. And I've talked to Chuck about it before too. It'd be nice to have a presentation at the council meeting of what they're doing, so we get a better understanding, because more and more this will be in our wheelhouse and front and center on our coast. So I just wanted to make those comments. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none. Jennifer, do we have, I don't know, council action? I don't see, do we have enough to, where are we at on this?
Mr. Vice Chair, there's the question of whether to send the quick response letter on AOAs.
Okay. I guess with that, is there anybody who disagrees with that? Okay. And Jennifer? Oh, Louis in.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. If there's any possible way for the Habitat Committee to liaison with either Bob Dooley or me or Marcy, who are most affected by what's going on in Southern California, the most likely the next AOA area to be totally modeled, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So moving forward here, Phil Anderson. Phil?
Oh, I'm sorry, I broke in right at the wrong time there. I just thought we ought to wish Jennifer a happy birthday.
Thank you.
And Heather Hall's birthday was yesterday, so happy birthday to Heather belatedly.
Nice. Okay, so
family.
So with that, Chuck, what else do we need to do here?
Thanks. I guess I would just maybe to touch on Marcy's comment about the quick response and the, drafting these letters is a very challenging task, and it does take a lot of coordination and getting making sure that all the various affected entities have an opportunity to look at things and agree on things. So, I think we ran into a little problem with this this last Army Corps permit letter, just because it came late. Now, well, I think it was an excellent effort. I think there was still some desire to have enough time to maybe massage the letter a little bit. So I guess I would just encourage the Habitat Committee, if possible, to give the council a little more time to respond in case they do have some substantive changes or questions that they would like to ask. So that's just maybe a little bit of ED guidance, staff guidance on that report.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. As far as Bob's mentioning the Aqua Mapper and having a presentation by James and Diane to him and some other council members, I guess, would that be, could they invite the Habitat Committee to be a part of that? Or what might you see there? Or is that something, how might that work?
Well, I guess there's a couple options. One is the council could schedule some time on its agenda if they wanted to get the direct report from those folks. Otherwise, they could request that the Habitat Committee reach out and schedule a presentation for the Habitat Committee, and then try and give people an opportunity to listen into that. Particularly if the Habitat Committee was to meet the day before the council was in session, then council members could listen as well. So I guess those are kind of the two options, and then some of the factors that might go into making the choice between those are how much the council would anticipate wanting to provide feedback to those people as opposed to just be informed about what's going on there. So I guess that's my input on that.
Yeah, okay. It just seems like that the time constraints we have, that maybe the latter might be better. But I see Marcy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Just on that last point and Chuck's options that he brought to us, I guess maybe I'd question if there might not be a third option. As the Habitat Committee referenced in its report, back in September, we did have a request to consider formation of a group. I'm not going to name what kind of group it would be, but a group that would be evaluating offshore development proposals, which would include aquaculture as well as wind, wave, energy, and others. So that's a discussion we need to take up under other agenda items, but I think, interpret a charge of that group to be the one that would be most appropriate, I think, to be receiving a presentation on AquaViewer and other data resources that are being incorporated into the AOA process. I don't know if Louie's request or Bob's request has a time sensitivity to it, but I feel like maybe our first step is to consider whether that group would exist, as I think this kind of assignment might fall squarely in their camp. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Marcy. I think that sounds a good idea. Take it up then.
Mr. Vice Chair, maybe I could respond real quickly to that. It did, remind me that we do have on our March agenda marine planning agenda item, at least tentatively at this point. So that's another place where something like that might land without becoming its entirely own agenda item. Just another thought for consideration, but again, that's maybe something for I don't know how deep you want to go into it here. Something we might be able to pick up under workload planning at the end of the meeting.
Okay, Jack, thank you. Further comments from the council? Okay, Jennifer, back to you to close us out here, I believe.
All right, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the council. Yeah, in terms of the direction or the suggestions by the Habitat Committee, that wrap up this agenda item.
Okay. Well, thank you. And with that, I guess we'll go into E1, Pacific Halibut Management. I guess we change chairs here. I give a little pause, but I believe that Brett is going to be in the staff seat for this item. Brett?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Good afternoon, council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Reading from agenda item E1 situation summary, as described in the Pacific Fishery Management Council's operating procedures number 9, the council solicits proposed changes to the Pacific Halibut Catch Sharing Plan for Area 2A and annual fishing regulations at September meeting. At the September 2020 meeting, the council adopted for public review proposed changes to the current Area 2A Pacific Halibut CSP and annual fishing regulations in Washington, Oregon, and California recreational fisheries for the 21 season as follows. In the Columbia River subarea, allow the retention of yellowtail, widow, canary, red stripe, green stripe, and that's silver gray, not sliver gray, chili pepper, boccaccio, and blue deacon rockfish, Pacific cod, flatfish species, and lingcod north of the Washington-Oregon border on all depth halibut days. Number 2, remove the description of the South Coast Recreational Yellow Eye Rockfish Conservation Area, YRCA, and the Westport Offshore YRCA from the CSP in section 6.9.3 South Coast Subarea H, closed conservation areas. Number 3, coastwide in Oregon, allow all depth halibut fishing and long leader gear fishing on the same trip And number 4, in the California sport fishery, change the end date from October 31 to no later than November 15th. So at this November meeting, NIMS provided some information on catch to date for Pacific halibut in 2020. That's under NIMS Report 1. And then we have some supplemental reports in the briefing book. I'll briefly go over those just in a second here. The council action today is to 1, adopt the final changes to the 2021 Pacific halibut catch sharing plan as necessary, and 2, adopt final changes to the 2021 annual fishery regulations as necessary. So in the briefing book, you've got attachment 1, that's the current version of the Pacific halibut catch sharing plan for Area 2A. You also got attachment 2, which is the visual representation of the catch sharing plan and the allocations that are provided to each of the fisheries and the calculations that are done there. You have, as I said, the NIMS Report 1, that's the catch for the 2020 fishery. It's preliminary information, just want to make a note of that, not final yet. E1A supplemental CDFW report, you have a WDFW report and an ODFW report, and then you have a supplemental GAP report, supplemental EC report, and then there's one public comment out there on the web that you can click on and read through. So with that, that's my overview. If there aren't any questions, we could go ahead and move to see if there's any questions for National Fisheries Service on their NIMS Report 1, and then I figured we would go down the list for the state reports.
Thank you, Brett. First of all, questions for Brett? Okay. Thank you, Brett. Let's go to Frank Lockhart from NIPS. Frank, do you have anything for us?
As Brett said, the report is in the briefing book. Typically, we do not read this report on the council floor, but we're happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Questions for Frank? Okay, thanks, Frank. Seeing none, we'll move to the WDFW report. Heather Hall. Heather?
Thanks, Vice Chair. I'll just summarize the information in the WDFW report really quickly here. We met with our stakeholders both in August and October to get input on changes to the catch sharing plan for 2021. Basically, what we heard was that there was a very strong interest in implementing the season structure that we had intended for 2020 in 2021. So the season dates that you see in the WDFW report reflect that input, and those are the dates we're recommending. We also have changes to the catch sharing plan that align halibut regulations with the groundfish regulations that were adopted for the 21-22 biennium. And those are revising the catch sharing plan to remove the description of the South Coast YRCA and the Westport Offshore YRCA, and in the Columbia River sub area to revise the catch sharing plan to allow the retention of yellowtail rockfish, widow rockfish, canary rockfish, red striped rockfish, green striped rockfish, silver gray rockfish, chili pepper, boccaccio, and blue deacon rockfish. That's in addition to the species that are already listed in the catch sharing plan, which is Pacific cod, flatfish, and lingcod north of the Washington-Oregon border. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Heather. Questions for Heather? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Heather. We'll go to the ODFW report going down the coast. Maggie Summer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me? Pardon me, Vice Chair. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great, thanks. I will summarize also so the supplemental ODFW report 1 under this agenda item. We solicited some public comment using an online survey following the September meeting on the item that was forwarded for further review, the proposal to allow all-depth halibut fishing and long leader gear fishing for midwater rockfish on the same trip in Oregon. We have very good participation in that online survey and strong support for allowing it. For those not familiar with the long leader fishery in Oregon, we provide some information in this report. The gear is basically designed to fish off the bottom and avoid yellow eye rockfish bycatch. And there, in Oregon rules, there are 10 specific midwater rockfish species that are allowed for retention in our long leader fishery. Because the gear has demonstrated that it is successful in avoiding yellow eye rockfish bycatch, the combination of long leader fishing on all depth halibut trips is not expected to result in any significant increase in yellow eye rockfish impacts, and it could provide some additional opportunity for anglers when they're offshore on all depth halibut trips. And we recommend that the council adopt alternative 1, which would be to allow the combination of these trip types. ODFW would be happy to work with the National Marine Fisheries Service as appropriate to finalize language in the catch sharing plan following council action on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Maggie. Questions for Maggie? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the CDF&W report. Marcy Rumko. Marcy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Our CDFW report describes the proposed change that we'd like to bring to the CSP for 2021 to extend the end of the season date of the sport fishery in California out to November 15th. This would be consistent with the IPHC regulations for the non-tribal commercial fisheries and other management areas to routinely operate past October 31st. And again, this would only be if the quota allows. It would just provide us additional flexibility to utilize any quota that we did have through the end of the season. The proposed CSP language is incorporated in our report. Then also we get into a little more description of our situation in our 2020 California recreational fishery. We went into some detail on this at the September meeting in our report, but we have a little more information now. The fishery closed on August 11th due to projected attainment of the quota. We now have new updated monthly catch estimates that are a little more complete at this point in time. If you look at table 1 in our report, you can see what we projected. This is using our normal methodology of how we do a catch projection for a month, and then we need to wait 6 weeks until the estimate is finalized using our normal SURFs methodology and production of estimates. Then we get that near final estimate from SURFs 6 weeks after the end of the month. And then we replace our original projection with the SURFs estimate. So you can see in table 1 where we fell out for the year. Our CDFW projections for the months of July and August were low, and the SURFs estimate, once it was calculated, came in a fair amount higher in both July and August, resulting in a total projected catch for 2020 of 64,000 pounds, which is significantly above our 2020 California quota. Kind of as discussed in our report here, we are talking internally about what we will do next year to do better. We appreciate the significance of this event and the sensitivity around it, and we will be looking at options and seeing what we can do to improve our monitoring and make things even more real time. It was just kind of a series of events this year, including some challenges with COVID and an unprecedented catch that we've never seen in California before. Catch rate just unheard of in our part of the woods, as we depicted in our report back in September. But now we know that we can have fishing potential like that. So we will be looking to refine our monitoring methodology so that we have even more situational awareness. So I guess with that, I would be happy to take any questions on our report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marcy. Questions for Marcy on her report? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Marcy. Now we'll go to the gap statement. I believe Dale Meyer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Can you hear me?